How about you, Shash? Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee.
Because all the blessings that we're going to get, which is entailing the kingdom of heaven. Isaiah the 60th chapter, I'm going to start at the 10th verse and read on down. It says, and the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. So the sons of strangers, that's talking about the actual strangers, the other nations, shall build up thy walls. We're going to have them in slavery. So they're going to be building the kingdom of heaven, because we're not building nothing. We're not lifting a hand to move nothing. It says, for in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually, they shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles. That's talking about the actual Gentiles. We're going to take all of their substance, and that their kings may be brought.
And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee.
Barakatah Yahweh Shah. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh. Barakatah Yahweh Shah.
For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish, yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted. Verse 13. And the glory of Lebanon shall come unto thee, the fir tree, the pine tree, the box together to beautify the place of my sanctuary, and I will make the place of my feet glorious. So the land of Israel, the land of Jerusalem, is going to be made glorious. It's going to be made glorious once again. The kingdom is going to be built up. We had a taste of that during the time of Solomon's reign, which was for about 40 years. Verse 14, the sons also of them that afflicted thee shall come bending unto thee, and they that despise thee shall bow themselves down at the soles of thy feet. And they shall call thee the city of the Lord. The word Zion means monument, the monument of the Holy One of Israel. Whereas thou hast been forsaken and hated, so that no man went through thee, I will make thee an eternal excellency, a joy of many generations. Thou shalt also suck the milk of the Gentiles, and shall suck the breasts of kings, meaning we're going to take all their substance. And thou shalt know that I am the Lord thy power, the Lord and thy Savior and thy Redeemer, the mighty one of Jacob. For brass I will bring thee gold, and for iron I will bring thee silver, and for wood brass, and for stones iron. And I will make thy officers peace, and thine exactors righteousness. Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders, but thou shalt call thy walls salvation, and thy gates praise. The sun shall no more thy light by day, neither for brightness shall the moon give light unto thee, but the Lord shall be unto thee an everlasting light, and the power thy glory. The sun shall no more go down, meaning our kingdom is not going to go down. In other words, once we get back in power, we're going to be in power forever. The sun is never going to go down on our kingdom again. The sun is never going to set on our kingdom. We're going to always shine, and we're going to always be in that glory once we get into the kingdom of heaven. There's no more going back into slavery under the other nations. Esau's not going to rise back up and put us in captivity. Ham, Japheth, Ishmael, none of the other nations are going to rise up and take us down ever again. When we get on top this time, we're going to remain on top. Neither shall thy moon withdraw itself, for the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended. So no more mourning, no more crying, no more vexation of spirit, no more weeping, no more hopelessness because of the condition that we're in as Israelites right now. Verse 21, thy people also shall be all righteous, they shall inherit the land forever. The branch of my planting, the work of my hands, that I may be glorified. Verse 22, a little one shall become 1,000. This is in the kingdom. So what is this talking about? We're going to have sex. Again, like I said, the 2/3 that are going to pass in this destruction The 2/3 are going to come back through the 1/3 that make it. The Lord said, 2/3 shall be cut off and die, and the third will I bring through the fire. It says, a little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time.
All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I would like to give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai Bahashem, Rakakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples to his younger brothers, and peace and blessings and salutation to the hopeful elect out there pushing his word and truth and in sincerity across the four winds in the name of Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Shem Kakwadash, pushing to get up out of here. Shalom to the hopeful elect, the believers, the listeners whom have came back to the obedience of the scriptures through faith in Yahweh Bashem Shai. All right, and what I want to get into this morning, morning news and prophecy, more pushback, on data centers, as the scriptures say, the devil, will draw closer, okay, to establishing his new world order. He would get pushback from, the labor of the working class. Okay. And this is what we're seeing happening, with the devil, all right, as he, pushes for this DPI, digital public infrastructure, okay, which is needed, okay, to run his new world order, all right, because it's a digital system, it's a digital control system, and it needs to be able to compute, all right, data swiftly, real time, for this control system. Okay. So what we're seeing is the devil roll this thing out. All right. What we're seeing is, these nations, all right, are fighting, for control of this new system. They get closer and closer into it. All right. And we have to understand that that these nations that are down with this new world order, they all work together, but they don't trust each other. Okay, Esau don't trust Esau. These nations don't trust Esau. These nations don't trust the other nation. There's a lot of, distrust, all right, within this global, all right, world order that these devils are trying to establish. And this is why we'll see, they're constantly fighting, okay, and ultimately it's going to lead, all right, to all out war, okay, amongst multiple nations at one time, okay. So we're going to constantly see these wars, okay, and these conflicts escalate, all right, as they get closer and closer to establishing, all right, this control system, okay, because this new world order is all about a system of control, all right, and that's why we see these nations scrambling, okay, for resources, okay, because whoever has, control of the resources, all right, is going to be in the power seat of this new control system that they plan on rolling out. Okay. So when you go into the book of Sirach 10 and 10, it said the physician cut it off a long disease, and he that is today a king, all right, tomorrow shall die. Okay. And the physician is Yahweh Shai, and the problem with the planet Earth is the earth has an Edomite problem. Okay. This man's rulership is destructive to the earth in every way. Physically, he destroys the earth. Psychologically, he destroys the people. Physically destroys the people. Okay, the animals, everything suffers. The ecosystem, the air quality. Okay, everything suffers under the rulership of Esau Edom. He's a dis-ease. Okay, the earth is at a dis-ease with Esau in power, man. And Yahweh Shai, he's coming to cut off that long dis-ease, which is Esau, man. Okay, the planet Earth has an Edomite problem. Okay, that's the core problem of the earth. That's the source of all problems and dis-ease in the earth is Esau, man. His rulership. Okay, and Yahweh Shai is coming to cut that off. Okay, the problem has been identified. Now it's being isolated. Okay, and Yahweh Shai is coming to deal with it. Okay, so let's go from there. Real quick, let's get this. Okay, this is a book of Isaiah, chapter 24 and verse 4. It said, "The earth mourned and faded away, the world languished and faded away. The haughty people of the earth do languish, man." Okay, and this man has the earth fading away. You know, the strength, the food is fading away. Okay, the strength of the animals, and their ability to do what they was intended to do in the earth is faded away. Okay, the quality of the earth, I said the air quality. Okay, the earth doesn't even have a smell. Okay, especially in America, man. Okay, his industrial, all right, his industrial sector of society, it fights against the air, man. This man has built a kingdom that fights against the earth. And the earth is fading away under this man. Okay, constantly, oil and fracking oil. Okay, oil is needed in the earth, man. You're not supposed to drill like this nigga does, man. Okay, you're not supposed to scrapulate all the oil at one time in the earth, man. Okay, then the oil is like a natural lubricant for the earth, man. Okay, but this devil, all right, his rulership is based in what? Overindulgence. You see, Esau sets the tone of overindulgence in the earth. He overfishes the waters. He scrapulates the oil. Okay, deforestation. Okay, he cuts down way too many trees. Certain trees you're not supposed to cut down. Okay, unless you're going to use those trees. Okay, for building. Well, then there's certain trees that you don't cut down. Okay, there's a certain ratio. All right, of trees that should remain. Okay, but this devil has no regard, okay, for the structure set up by the heavenly Father, and that's why when you go to verse 5, it says the earth also is defiled under the inhabitants thereof, man. And who's the top inhabitant? Who's the leader of the inhabitants of the earth? Okay, who rules the inhabitants of the earth at this time? Esau, Edom. Okay, beginning with Amalek, man. It said because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Yeah, because the laws of the Bible, they're not just random laws. They're not just random preferences of the Most High. Do this, do that, don't do this, don't do. They're not just random, preferences. No, that's the wisdom of the Most High and how to run the earth, man. That's the manual needed to maintain the earth, man. Okay, because earth was created to be enjoyed. It was created to be a paradise, man. Okay, but under the rulership of Esau, Edom, this man has turned earth, okay, into a dump, man. This man has turned earth to a death camp. Okay, a system of debt. Okay, all this earth and abundance, the abundance, the earth was created to shoot forth your abundance, man, to where everyone there's enough land and resources for everyone, all right, to be in a good position, man. Of course, you're always gonna have those that have more than others, okay? But the way this man has, so much suffering, has normalized, suffering on the planet Earth of abundance is wicked, man. Okay, and the way this man runs the earth, okay, and the way this man whole kingdom, all right, fights against the earth, man. The concrete, the industry, the noise, the sound, everything fights against the earth. The Wi-Fi, the distance, everything that you can think of in this man's kingdom, it fights the earth, man. The plastics, okay, the synthetic material that he makes, man. Okay, there's just islands of trash, floating trash islands in the ocean, man. Okay, this nigga test missiles and okay, and they just land in the ocean. Okay, aircraft carriers leaking oil, those fighter jets leaking oil, man. Everything that this man has set up in the earth, man, destroys the earth. And that's why eventually the Lord has to intervene, and we in the time, and this is why the Lord has these devils, okay, engaged, all right, in these wars, man, because these wars is going to end this, man. Okay, this third world war is going to end Esau Edom. Okay, because the Lord has to intervene, or the scriptures say, or the book of Matthew, chapter 24. The Heavenly Father got to intervene with this nigga, man. This Matthew 24 and 20. I started 21 said, "For there shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be, man." And we're in a time of great tribulation, because as this devil, attempts to bring in his new world order, his global reset, it's going to be through a lot of death, a lot of chaos. Okay, it's going to be world war, so it's going to be a lot of carnage. It's going to be a time of famine like never before. All right, it's going to be the worst famine the earth has ever seen, the worst war the earth has ever seen. Okay, the worst confusion, and you see, we got the teeth of wild beasts, and the Heavenly Father. All right, He's going to cause these times to come to pass. Esau was just a tool in the Lord's tool belt to bring about, all right, tribulation in the end. Okay, and then there's thing that's going to be happening that's beyond Esau. Okay, because the Lord, this the Lord's judgment, man. Okay, it's not Esau's judgment that's coming to the earth. It's the Lord's judgment, man. And Esau is going to be a tool, okay, of judgment by the Most High. Okay, because he's going to be judged, man. Okay, but that time is at hand of great tribulation. All right, and things are going to continue to get worse, especially as these devils, all right, know what they have but a short time. Okay, because these devils got to go on what they move. Verse 22 says, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh be saved, man. And if the Lord was to allow this devil, to continue to try to establish his new world order, man, no flesh should be saved. And as we get closer and closer, all right, as we see the devil rolling this thing out more and more, we see, man, this is very destructive what this devil is doing, man. Okay, this is extremely destructive to people, to the earth, all right, to the animals, to the environment. What this devil is trying to do. Okay, and we see that this devil don't got this thing figured out, man. Okay, he throwing this shit together, man. All right, and it's tacky and it's destructive. Okay, but no flesh will be saved to the Most High. All right, just sit back and let the devil attempt to do this and instigate wars and try to do this and try to do that and all right, try to set up all these goddamn data centers everywhere. Okay, this man will just destroy. He will make the earth uninhabitable, man. Okay, this devil will turn the earth to a bando. You see, it says, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. Okay, and for the sake of the elect, all right, because the elect represents the next rulership, the elect of Israel. Okay, and under Yahushua, that's going to be the next rulership, man. Okay, the government is going to establish righteousness in the earth, man, order in the earth, man. Okay, the earth is going to yield forth its strength under the true, all right, and rightful rulers, man, beginning with Yahushua. Okay, but right now, man, the earth is in a decaying state. People are in a decayed state. Okay, and this devil, he still has his foot on the gas, man. Okay, to bring more decay. All right, and we have to understand that this devil, all right, was given power to do what? Take peace from the earth. Okay, this is part of this devil's agenda. This is what he was created to do. Okay, so anyone, people are still and people think that they can vote, all right, and make a change. Okay, people thinking, okay, we just tried this system. Well, why about we do this? How about we do that? It's how about we lower the taxes. Okay, let's say the tariffs, we tariff and all these different random suggestions. The problem is Esau is in power. Okay, this is the problem, man. Okay, the man of sin is in power, is in rulership. Okay, and he was given a certain task, Revelation 6 and 4, and there went out another horse that was red, and power was given unto him, which is Esau, to sit there on to take peace from the earth. Okay, so a part of this devil's agenda is to take peace from the earth, man. Okay, so no matter what system you try to give this nigga, it will all result in him taking peace from the earth. Okay, that's what he's wired to do, and it's going to be the judgment of the heavenly Father. Okay, that's going to remove this man from power. Okay, and this war, all right, that this devil has instigated to do a global reset. Well, this same war is going to remove this nigga from power, man. Okay, because it's going to escalate to nuclear and the return of Yahweh. You see, it says, and that they should kill one another, and there was given unto him a great sword, you know? And with this sword, what has this man done with this sword, man? Okay, terrorize the earth. And every time they get to a certain point, all right, they terrorize each other with the sword, man. You see, they do it every time. All right, from the Greeks to the Romans to the Renaissance period. When these devils reach a certain point, when they reach a certain level of power, they always they start off terrorizing the earth, and then after they get to a certain point, a certain level of power, they terrorize each other, man. And this is where we at now. Okay, we're in the part of the story where these devils getting ready to terrorize. All right, getting ready to terrorize each other, man. All right, that's why you see this infight. Okay, well, let's go here real quick. We'll get into that. Well, let's go here with this with the data center. All right, because more people are fighting back. You know, because these data centers are just terrorizing, you know, people and environments, man. Okay, so let's play this. All right, you're seeing an uptick, you know, on people, you know, trying to be proactive. Okay, once they get, you know, word that the data center is coming, man, you got people now running down to these town halls and these, you know, these city council meetings. Okay, and they're beginning to push back. Okay, with this prophecy, you know, every hand of the wicked, all right, which goes into our mall, which is the worker or the labor, shall be upon him, man. Okay, let's play this.
They canceled it! Say what? They canceled it!
So, you know, they're putting up these data centers. We were talking about this with Whitney Webb, and she, you know, there's a lot of horror surrounding them. They use up all the water in the area. It drives up everybody's electricity, all kinds of bad things. So they tried to stop it. There was one that proposed. This is from Wall Street Apes. This is literally insane. So many people showed up to oppose a $6 billion data center in Missouri that they had to use bleachers. The whole crowd yells and chants they don't want the data center. Festus City Council voted to approve the data center anyway, right in their freaking faces. Wow. Here it is. Let's watch a little bit. Here's the Festus Council approves a $6 billion data center plan despite public pushback.
Bill number 4876, ordinance of
So CRG, the data center arm of area developer Clayco, hopes to build the data center on roughly 360 acres north of Highway 67, and they're all chanting, vote them out. Okay. And they did it. They approved it anyway, right in their face. They don't care.
Yeah, because the least don't care, all right, about the masses of people. And see, your government, okay, you Americans don't have a government, okay? You Americans have absolutely no government, okay, that does anything for you, man. Your government does the bidding of the elites, all right, from the city officials all the way up, all right, to the federal, all right, the state and federal level. Okay, and if there's any kickback amongst the state or federal level, man, they out of there, man. Okay, America has been completely taken over by the corporations. Okay, which do the bidding of the elites, man. Okay, so what you Americans want don't matter. Okay, your vote don't matter. Okay, no matter who you vote for, the midterms, you got people talking about the midterm. None of that's going to matter, man. You're living in the transition to a technocracy, man. Okay, so that illusion, okay, of a republic or a democracy. Hey, they balled it up. The Constitution, you can ball it up. Okay, you can stop talking about the Constitution. You can stop talking about a right. You can stop talking about the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. Throw them away. The FDA, Food and Drug Administration, throw them away. The USDA, United States Drug Association, you can throw that away. Okay, throw all that away. None of that matters. There's no one protecting you, your environment. No one protecting your food source. Okay, no one protecting. All right, even your security. Okay, so you people are offended. You just out here, man. You Americans, you're just out here, man. Okay, at the mercy of the elites, and the elites ain't gonna have no mercy, man. Okay, so let's play this.
Look how unreasonable these people are about having their land, water, and private information and power stolen from them. How unreasonable. Here's another one. This is the noise. This is the noise coming from the hyperscale data center in Dowagiac, Michigan. Residents who live nearby say they can no longer open the windows in their homes because of the noise and are very worried about their property values. The data center. So let's listen. Oh my God. One resident says the noise has made him unable to open his windows in the summer and is worried about what it will do to his property values. The company Hyperscale Data is planning to expand.
In the summertime, like I said, we like to have our windows open, and it's hard to when you're listening to that all the time. Yeah, I'd worry about that, the property values, because who's going to want to, if we want to resell the house, who's going to want to buy the house with that noise? No one's going to want to buy it. They'll be like, no, we ain't moving there. I mean, and we liked it here. We've been here since 09, and we loved it here. But now, I don't know. It's not the quiet country city living that we've been used to.
Has it done anything good for the city, do you think? Having that here?
If it has, I don't know where. I couldn't tell you where. All I know is it's I don't even know for sure. They painted it at one time, and then they changed it up, and they did that. And they put the screens up there, and they just make a noise of it. There's just too much noise.
Can you imagine living next door to that? Can you imagine that? You got a house, all of a sudden they do that to your neighborhood? I guess you don't have to imagine it. It happened.
That makes me sick.
Here is a massive 18 million square foot data center is being planned north of Amarillo, Texas, along with a nuclear power plant to power it. Cotton Farmer says the Texas Panhandle is the largest U.S. cotton producing region, and water needs of the data center is going to wipe out the cotton industry. Many residents in the area rely on well water, to which will be also likely wiped out. The initial agreement with the city of Amarillo supplies 2.5 million gallons per day from municipal sources under a 20-year contract. They can use 912.5 million gallons of water per year. That's a billion gallons of water per year. This will be devastating to the people who live there and rely on the water. No kidding. Well, maybe if they use the Flint, Michigan water, it will poison the company and it'll drop dead. How about that? Here's a Cotton Farmer.
For anybody in the Texas Panhandle, you might want to pay attention to this one. I don't know how many of y'all have heard about Project Matador. And if you have, I don't know how many of you heard all of it. Because quite frankly, I've heard enough that it scares the shit out of me. For those that don't know what Project Matador is, it is an 18 million square foot data center planned to be built north of Amarillo, Texas. Now, the problem that I have with this place, and the reason it scares me, is the cooling. Because it's not just cooling the data center itself, it's also the cooling for the nuclear power plants they're planning on building to power this place. Now, the cooling for that area is going to have to come from one of two places, and both of them are underground. It's either going to come from the Ogallala Aquifer or the Santa Rosa Aquifer. Either way, it's going to dry up a lot of water to the south of that power plant on the southern end of the Panhandle. And for those that don't realize, the Panhandle region of Texas is the largest cotton producing region in the United States. You want a quick way to put an end to that? Dry up the well water, because there's a lot of us that rely on those to grow what we do. The Panhandle region, with irrigation, we can grow between 2 and 4 bale cotton, depending on how good your wells are and where you're at, how good your soil is. You dry up those wells, we're going to go from that 2 to 4 bale region, which is about 1,000 to 2,000 pounds, down to about a half a bale acre, which is about 250 pounds per acre. You do away with irrigation for us, and we can't grow what we grow. It's also going to hurt the people that live in the rural areas that rely on well water for their homes. People that live out here in the country, you dry their wells up and they don't have a choice. They either have to haul water in or they have to move, period. Now, this place claims they're not going to use a whole lot of water. They claim that, oh, well, it's going to be a closed loop system. We're just going to get a little bit of water out to start with, and then we won't need any more. They're going to use cooling ponds, and I've read through all of their proposed plans. Well, those cooling ponds, what they don't understand is West Texas is also very hot, and a lot of water gets lost due to evaporation, which is why a lot of guys have done away with pivots and gone to subsurface drip irrigation to try to mitigate evaporation loss. Well, when the water evaporates out of their pond, they're going to have to refill it. They don't have a choice, which is going to drain more water out of the aquifer. I don't know how well our politicians are paying attention to what's going on with that and all the other data centers around the area. There's several. There's one being built about 5 miles away from where I'm standing right now.
And America still don't get it. All right, you don't have no politicians. Okay, you fully been given over to the corporations. Okay, that's why your politicians are setting you up, all right, to get that C hill properly, all right, so you can be properly of the elite. See, you're going to be the cattle of the digital, okay, system. Then they plan on depopulation, so they don't mind turning places into deserts while their data centers are functioning. They don't mind population dying off, okay, so they can have a functioning data center. Okay, this is the sick mind of Esau Edom. Okay, and these data centers are having major ripple effects on the environment, man. Okay, and there's no one that's coming, all right, to stop, all right, these devils, okay, until Yahweh shot. You see, at the end of the day, the earth itself, okay, the environment itself is waiting on Yahweh shot to remove this nigga from power, man. Okay, and the Lord is going to allow Esau to be a terror, okay, unto the earth until he's judged, man, because the Lord is using Esau to judge, man. Okay, because the Lord that wants to bring hell on earth, man, and he's doing it through Esau. Okay, until it gets to the point that he judged Esau, man. The Lord got things in motion, okay, to what his man Esau, he's running to his end. In the midst of Esau running to his end, okay, he's going to bring terror, okay, on the global population, man, especially here in America, okay? But there's the Lord causing this devil to do this because the Lord wants to terrorize this wicked society, man, okay? Let's play a little more.
I don't know how well they're paying attention to these data centers and just exactly what's going on. But if they would listen to the people of Texas, especially the people of rural Texas who are affected by what these guys are doing, they would understand that we don't want these things. We don't need them. We don't want them. They can be built in different places where they're not going to affect agriculture. Now, our state lawmakers, I don't know if they're going to do anything to put a stop to this or try to pull the reins back on it and say, hey, hold on, let's investigate this a little more. I don't know if they're going to do that. I don't know if the guys in Washington even care. You know, our president claims to be a friend of the farmer, claims to support what we do out here, but in the same breath is allowing places like Project Matador to be built, which is going to kill farming in the Panhandle region of Texas. So I don't know what's to be done other than call your elected officials and I don't know, try to get them on board with putting a stop to this. I've talked to a few guys that are running for state office, and the best response I've got from one of them was, well, I've talked to guys and we're planning on building a pipeline down from Kansas or Missouri, somewhere up north. We're going to build it off one of the rivers, and we're going to pump river water down to the Panhandle so y'all can irrigate with river water.
Just telling a nigga anything, man. Basically. All right. Just telling them anything. So let's jump ahead a little bit. Let's see if we go into something else. Yeah, man. Like I say, they have no one to go to. There's no one. Everything is bought and paid for by, all right, the elites, man. Especially through these tech companies, man. Okay, they'll say your local officials are bought and paid for. Your city, your state officials. Okay, your lawmakers. The lawmakers belong to the elites, and that's why the elites said, one of the Rothschilds said, I care not, okay, who makes the laws. Just give me control over a nation's money supply. Because if you control the money, you control the lawmakers, man. Okay? And you Americans are going to be the last one to find out that you do not have a government. Okay? You have middle management. All right? These government officials are nothing but middle management of the elites. Okay? And they manage the affairs of the elites, man. Okay? If brother want to post that real quick, what's that, Ciroc 10-3 barbershop, you know, but brother can post that Ciroc 10-3, okay. Also with it, Isaiah 19-4, okay. Let's get this as well. The brother got this. Just the brother, all right. GMS Virgin Island, Straight Gate, all right. Job 20:22, it says, in the fullness of his sufficiency, he shall be in straits. Every hand of the wicked shall come upon him, man. You know, and now you have, you know, a movement that's growing that people are pushing back. Okay, people are pushing back. Now we know that this devil, the Lord gonna put the spirit on the devil to come with, all right, distress and chaos to break these people down. But the fact that they got to push back lets us know, okay, he's close to pulling this thing off, man. You know, he's close to pushing, all right, and establishing this new world order because he's getting this kickback. And we know data centers, okay, are, all right, the brains of this new world order. Okay, the brains and the veins of this new world order system. Okay. And now, you know, the people are finding out how destructive they are. You know, you have real reports, you know, like the noise pollution, you know, people are having strokes. Okay. People are having seizures that never had seizures before. As these data centers move in, the air quality, you know, has become hazardous. Okay. So you have all these things going on, man, and people are getting whim. There's a data center being put in close by, man. You know, people are beginning to go irate. Okay. So they're just prophecy of, you know, the hand of the wicked, Amal in the Hebrew, which is the laborer, all right, the servant. Okay, so you have the working class, man, that's beginning to push back, all right, directly against these data centers, man. This is brother Mark Abal, Isaiah 19:4. It says, and the Egyptians will I give over into the hand of a cruel Lord, and a fierce king shall rule over them, said the Lord of hosts, man. Okay, and you're talking about Trump, talking about he's a friend of the former man. Trump is a friend of the elites. Okay, all right. Trump played this character. All right, he's an actor, man. And you Americans haven't woken up to the fact Okay, that your presidents are actors, man. Even go back to Ronald Reagan, he was an actor, man. Okay, which what he do when he came in, man? He gave all authority to corporations. Okay, Trump is like a Reagan 2.0, man. Study Reagan. Okay, actor. Okay, Make America Great Again. It comes from Reagan. Trump, an actor. Make America Great Again. Same thing, man. Because they bank on the stupidity of you Americans, man. Okay, you're so saturated with convenience and entertainment. Okay, and you don't have a clue how your government works, man. And you don't have a clue that your government been stopped giving a damn. Okay, so now you got a cruel lord that's doing the bidding of the elites. Okay, this is a Mark of Ball, Sirach 10:3. It says, an unwise king destroyeth his people. Okay, and Esau, Edom is that unwise king. Okay, he's that unwise king, man. All right, look at what he's doing to the people that he's ruling over, man. Okay, what type of king will have a depopulation agenda against his people, against people that he's ruling over? Okay, as a king, you should want your population to flourish, your subjects to flourish. Okay, but Esau was so wicked, and remember, he was given the authority to take peace from the earth. Okay, so this is an unwise king that destroyed his people. We're watching in real time. Okay, everything that this man does destroys, man. Okay, it has a ripple effect of death and destruction. Okay, and people suffer, man. This man has turned, all right, the earth into a death camp. Okay, it says, an unwise king destroyed his people. All right, but through the prudence of them which are in authority, the city shall be inhabited, and that's going to be under the authority of the elect of Israel. All right, beginning with Yahushua. Okay, and Yahushua, his kingdom is going to bring life back to the earth. Now these heathens are going to be punished. Okay, they're going to be punished. They're going to be chastised in righteousness. And Esau, he's going to be done away with. You know, he serves no purpose after the 1,000 years of captivity. Esau absolutely served no purpose to exist. Okay, he's going to be out of there, man. All right, so let's play a little more of this, and then we'll segue to something else.
So let's see.
For them.
The New Brunswick, New Jersey City Council voted. Wow, we've done comedy in New Brunswick. New Jersey City Council voted Wednesday to cancel plans. What's the date on this? This is from February 19th. To construct an artificial intelligence data center and instead build a new public park where the 27,000 square foot facility would have gone. Artificial intelligence data centers, which house the servers and other infrastructure needed to train and power AI models, have major environmental and climate impacts as they consume massive amounts of electricity and water, as well as rare earth metals and other resources. So, according to the New Brunswick Patch, hundreds of people packed into Wednesday evening City Hall meeting to voice concerns that the proposed data center would send their electricity and water bills skyrocketing and that the facility would harm the environment. Many people did not want this in their neighborhood, New Brunswick NAACP President Bruce Morgan said during the council meeting. We don't want these kinds of centers that's going to take resources from the community. The site of the next data center, 100 Jersey Avenue, is already slated for development, including 600 new apartments, 10% of which will be affordable housing units and warehouses for startups and other small businesses. Now, thanks to Wednesday's vote, a park is on the agenda too. This is great news. No data center, New Brunswick resident Ann Norris told Patch. My kids went through the public school system. We didn't pay for lunch because we have so many families under the poverty line, Norris said, before taking aim at what she said was the dearth of affordable housing approved for the site. Given the economic status of the people who live in New Brunswick, I don't think 10% is really sufficient.
Yeah, so you got these people now, just to show you that there is a awakening, with these data centers, man. That's the new movement, okay, amongst a lot of these locals, because they're hearing the horror stories of these data centers in these other towns. Now let's go here. Let's segue here. All right, because it's all about a control system, and this war is linked to them trying to establish, all right, this control system. Okay. Now when you go here, and then we'll segue to the few things that happened with the war. All right. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Yeah, so let's go here. All right, because this war is them devils. You know, it's them fighting. For who's going to control the new control system, and also tie up certain loose ends. And Iran is a loose end that needs to be tied up. Okay, they need Iran to come in fully. Okay, so they've engaged in this war with Iran, which they tried to bully them. That didn't work. Okay, now they got to finesse them. All right, you best believe all this help. All right, that Russia and China is doing for Iran. Okay, it's all geared towards getting Iran fully on board with this new world order. And now that Iran has this potential, because in the eyes, you gotta look at these nations. Okay, with Iran, they want to be part of the global economy. Okay, and in order to be part of the global economy, you got to adapt to this system. So Iran is not going to be able to be the black sheep anymore. Okay, now they are, all right, kicking ass, with against Iran and against these small hats in America. Okay, and these nations, look at this, all right, and they're beginning to pivot. All right, these certain elites, these certain factions, that's behind this control system, certain elite factions. Okay, they're beginning to pivot, make new moves. Okay, but it's all still going towards the same control system that they agree upon. Okay, they all agree on the same control system. They all agree, all right, with a technocracy. Okay, but the thing is, it's a fight of who's going to control the system. Okay, so let's play this.
Having you on, Kath, let's just dive right into the nitty gritty here. This crisis in the Strait of Hormuz. It's been ongoing now for about a month, and there's all sorts of theories out there. But what's your view on what's really going on here? Is this really as simple as Iran cutting off the strait and Trump kind of responding back, or is, in a weird way, does the U.S. kind of benefit from the strait being closed?
So you're watching a battle to evolve the financial system. And there are real, we're going through what's called a reset, which is a re-engineering of the financial system. And this one is quite extraordinary because for the push for a digital control. And if you remember, if you go back to 9/11, when Wesley Clark said we're going to invade 7 countries in 5 years, the last one was Iran. And as you can see, it's taken longer than 5 years. And Iran is very much the leakage in the system, in part because it's such a great source of energy. And so what we're watching is, and there's real debate about how much, how many problems in the financial system are forcing them to push hard now, and how much of that is just we're going into COVID 2.0 as part of the reset. And your guess is as good as mine. But I think the people who run the financial system, or certainly the Western financial system, want to get through the next phase of building control, and they need to shut down the leakage that's happening through Iran.
What leakage in particular?
So Iran is not an integrated part of the Western financial system. It's not on SWIFT. it hasn't played ball in a variety of ways. And because it has so much energy and is one of the greatest sources of energy, sort of fossil fuels in the world, that presents leakage in the system. So if you look at when Wesley Clark said these 7 countries in 5 years, that was part of shutting down the leakage. And part of it is, energy, who controls the energy is very important to who controls the reserve currency, and what percentage of the market share that reserve currency has, whether it's in trade or global reserves.
So we talked about what energy wars, okay? Because when Saddam, tried to take his oil off the petrodollar, he got invaded, okay? When Gaddafi tried to do that, he got invaded, okay? Venezuela, through the era of Hugo Chavez, okay, to remove the dollar, because you had Hugo Chavez going over to talk to, all right, Saddam, okay, and I believe he talked to Gaddafi as well, okay, because you had this, they were trying to start, all right, they were trying to undermine the petrodollar, okay, and that's why Venezuela has always been in the talks, okay. So what these devils have been doing, they've been making sure that the world's, all right, energy sources, all right, these oil producing nations, okay, stay in line, okay, with these elite bankers. They wanted to where they can have free access to the world's energy because they need all this energy. Because the data center, they're finding out, man, that it takes way more, all right, energy than they expected to run these data centers, man. Okay, and what this devil is trying to pull off, man, he needs all this oil on market, man. So Iran is the last nation that their oils are not, integrated, okay, into the global systems. It's more of a, Iran has been more of a black market, type economy, to where they got to do, these off, these what you call it, these direct deals with these nations. Iran don't participate, in the financial system of the West. Okay, that's why it's hard for them to have a strong economy because they don't get to participate, okay, in the financial systems of the West. Okay, so now it's like, okay, we got to get Iran fully on board, and that's why they was pushing so much for regime change, because with regime change, the people at the top, it'd be easy for them to just make, just to make adjustments, okay, and to hand over Iran's energy, okay, to the West, and that's what America was going there to attempt to do, okay, but it failed. So now they're having to, go another way, but they're still on track to set up a control system. Okay, they're still at hand. All right, so let's jump up a little bit. Okay, so it's interesting to see these things play out because guess what? The Lord is beginning, all right, to put scrapes in the devil's way, man. Okay, and we're going to see the devil, get very frantic soon. Okay, and really start doing, drastic things, all right, to keep this thing on track, man. Okay, so let's play this.
If you look at resources, if you look at the United States' position relative to many other countries, including its allies, its net position is much better than many other countries. So you can imagine, in the game of economic warfare, it has a real advantage if you're going to shut down energy, if you're going to shut down helium, if you're going to shut down the materials you need for fertilizer. But this is going to dramatically hurt small enterprise everywhere in the world. So I'll give you some numbers, some examples. The tourist business worldwide employs 1 out of 10 people globally. So you have 357 million people working in tourism globally. If you shut tourism and transportation down and do another COVID 2.0, Imagine the unemployment. At the same time, you're dramatically driving up food prices because of the shortages in fertilizer and missing the spring planting and other things. So we're talking about something that can convert into real, energy shortages that cascade into a global depression, severe global depression and famine.
And then we have to understand that these devils, they want to finish off the middle class. Okay, they want to completely eradicate the middle class, and the people that's going to be affected, all right, first by famine are the poor. So they want to depopulate through famine, and they want to make the middle class desperate. Okay, so these devils have a lot of agenda. It's never just one thing, that these devils got going on with war. All right, with this war, not just one reason, and then this one reason cancel out all the other reasons. No, there's multiple reasons why these devils, instigate these wars. Okay, we know energy is one. All right, we know a economic reset is one. Okay, and we know depopulation agenda is one of the reasons, man. Okay, but that's the elite's agenda. See, the Lord's agenda, this war is going to end Esau's empire. Okay, and it's going to end the governments of the world at the return of Yahushua. Okay, so in this war is where, all right, the agenda of Esau, okay, and the agenda of the Most High collide. Okay, and they're going to collide via, all right, Yahushua. Okay, so there's a path to a collision, that we're on with this war. Okay, this devil, he's trying to reset, and establish his control system. Okay, but the Most High is going to reset and establish a righteous government in the earth. Okay, so let's play this a little more.
Yeah, well, to kind of put it into perspective, when we closed down the world in 2020 because of COVID, that took about 10% off of global oil consumption offline. And if this fully takes off not only the Strait of Hormuz, but also the Red Sea, if we start taking that oil offline, that amounts to about 20% or so of world consumption. So 10% was kind of equivalent to shutting down the entire world. 20%, what are the ramifications of this thing ongoing? Because we're 5 weeks into this thing now. President Trump says he wants another 2 or 3 weeks. That could go for much longer, but I see you jumping at the bit here. But go ahead.
Right. So what you're talking about is not just a shutdown. You're talking about a cascade that bankrupts and shuts down whole industries, because it's not just they can't get the energy. It's also so let's look. Japan has a problem because their reserves are so short. They run the risk of not being able to get energy. If you look at the United States, they're a net exporter. They got plenty of energy, but if you look at what it's going to do to prices, it's still going to be, you're still going to find lots of fishermen who can't afford to put diesel on their ship and fish at a cost-effective price. So, so a lot of people won't get shut down by absence of supply. They'll get shut down by price. So you're talking about setting off a real global depression, because lots of businesses will go bankrupt that don't need to. There's not an economic rationale. for them to fail, other than their failures being engineered.
It seems like, however, the hardest and first hit will most likely be South Asia and Africa, and then later on you've got Europe getting hit harder. Then America's kind of at the very end of it. We get kind of hit the least and the last.
So I wouldn't think of this in terms of nation states. I would think of this in terms of food insecure populations, or populations who are living on the margin, who can't quickly build a resilient, self-sufficient life. So you have people living under very poor conditions, but they live on the land and they know how to support themselves on the land. If you come to the United States, very few people know anymore how to grow a garden. And if they're food insecure or living on the line, they're going to get thrown over. So they're not going to be able to make ends meet.
So we could potentially see famine not just in global South, but also in the Western sphere of things?
Right. And we're watching famine in the West now, particularly in the United States, where people are eating calories, but they're not eating nutrition. And you are seeing them physically decline steadily as a result of it. You know, it's sort of a high caloric famine.
Mm.
Oh, so like my bad. Yeah, I'm back. And if a brother could, post that second Edges 15. Okay, and what's that, second Edges 15 and no, second Edges 16 verses 21 and 22. You know. But yeah, going back to the point I was saying, so Lucky. It should be back on. Yeah, y'all let me know if y'all can hear me now. Yeah, let me know if the volume came back. Oh. Okay, yeah, brother, post a preset, so we should be good then. But yeah, so what I was saying, just to go into what she was saying, dealing with how, because he was making a point that, the famine going to hit, the global South, with just all the African nations and, what they call the Middle East. Okay, also, certain, Asian, Eastern Asian countries. Okay, but what she was telling him, was also going to be affected is the food, insecure nations. Okay, because what people consider third world countries, they live based off an agrarian society. They're used to not having running water. They're used to not having, the convenience and the comforts, but they know how to live off the land. So um, they already grow their food. They don't have the abundance. Of the West. They don't have the convenience. Okay, of these Western first world societies. But they know how to live on the bare minimum. You see. So of course, this famine is going to affect the world. All right, but it's going to have a major effect on these food insecure societies, especially America, where only 2% of Americans are farmers. Okay, and most people in America they depend on the grid being up and running for daily consumption. And like she said, most people, have access to calories but don't have access to nutrients, man. Okay, so a famine in America is going to be, it's going to be on a whole nother level. It's going to hit quick when it does hit. Okay, and it's going to be extreme because people are already malnourished and overweight. Okay, and addicted to, all right, processed food. Okay, and all this processed sugar, man. So the famine in America gonna hit on a whole nother level. Okay, and that's why when you get here, this is the book of Second Ezra 16:21. It says, this from the brother, the hopeful elect 3 says, behold, victuals shall be so good, cheap upon earth, that they shall think themselves to be in good case. And even then shall evils grow upon the earth, sword, famine, and great confusion. Okay, sword, famine, and great confusion, man. Okay, so this is what we're dealing with is that people, okay, in these first world countries, are going to think themselves to be in good case and not knowing that these evils are growing, while you're out, kicking it with the fam. And, it's the springs going into summertime. So you're going to have, a lot of people out, doing their thing, traveling. Okay. And they think they still can afford to do particular things. They think they're in a good case, man. But when this famine hit, it's going to hit, and people are going to be confused. Okay, because this is a very fragile system in America, man. Okay, so when it gets to the point to where people are being priced out, okay, or they shut down the pumps, okay, or they cause some type of you know cyber attack to happen, okay, it's going to be something, man, that's going to throw this place into great confusion, okay, and the famine is going to hit quick, because people's access to food is based on what? All right, transportation, man. These trucks running. All right, the grocery stores have what, 3 days worth of food. Okay, so people's food source. Okay, because you got people still in America that eat at restaurants. All right, whether you're eating at fast food every day or you're eating, if you still have the means, you got some people that still can do fine dining most of the week. Okay, so when these things start running, when access to food is cut off, man, it's not going to take long for the American society to go into a famine. Okay, because it's a fragile system that people depend on for their daily food, man. Okay, all right, and you jump to verse 22. It says, "For many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy." Man. Okay, so for many of them that dwell upon the earth shall perish of famine, and the other that escape the hunger shall the sword destroy. Okay, so it says many gonna perish of famine, man. Okay, and those that have some type of surplus of food, hey, people are gonna put them to death about their food, man. Okay, and then those that survive and get the sea hip, and the nuke's gonna destroy, man. You see, so it's a lose lose. All right, for majority of Americans outside the elect, man. And that's why, we read the scriptures, speak about us, eating during the famine, us having plenty. A brother want to post that real quick, Second Ezra 2 and 20, 27 and 28. Okay. So yeah, man, that famine, all right, it's gonna hit quick in America, man. And it's gonna be extreme because America one of the most unhealthy places on earth. Okay, the food supply is already poison and a slow death. Okay, and it's people, them sugar, uh, what you call it, them sugar withdrawals gonna be heavy in America, man. Okay, people are used to their daily consumption of that processed sugar, man. Them sugar withdrawals gonna be heavy in America, man. You know, so let's get a couple more precepts. This is the brother Yahweh, the hopeful leg 3, Luke 21:26 said, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the power of heaven shall be shaken, man. Okay, so it's gonna be a time. It's gonna get bad quick, and you take away the convenience from such an entitled, society. Okay, you bring, instant discomfort, to a society of comfort, man. Okay, it's gonna get extremely, all right, violent real quick, man. Okay, plus you got, throw the mercenaries and, the militias that's gonna be out there that's been preparing for this time, man. It's gonna get bad in America, quick, and these devils, the Lord is making these devils hit the gas with this thing, man. Second Ezra 2:27, it said, be not worried, for when the day of trouble and heaviness cometh, others shall weep and be sorrowful, but thou shalt be merry and have abundance. Okay, it says the heathen shall envy thee, but they shall be able to do nothing against thee, said the Lord. And that's a guarantee from our power, man, from Yahweh Bashem Al-Shah. So we don't have to destroy ourselves trying to prep. You could do little things here and there, if you got, a little extra food, or grow food, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay. But we know that it's gonna be through miracles that we're gonna survive these times, man. Okay. And these people are finna suffer. Okay. The Lord is getting ready to starve. All right. A lot of people out. That's why I say many shall die by famine. Okay. So we know what these devils are doing, all right, is going to cause a famine. But ultimately, it's the Lord that wants this famine, all right, come to pass, man. Okay. Remember, Esau is just a tool. So let's play a little bit more of this. I got to think one more clip. This is a pretty good interview. I agree with most of the things, a lot of the things that she say. Certain things, is anything it got, bones in it. Okay. But she's been going in lately, and she gives a good perspective as far as from the control system, the banking aspect of it. All right. Because we know that at the end of the day, with these wars, the bankers always win. Okay, because they play both sides. Okay, and these nations fight it out. Okay, for control. All right, but the system is ran by the bankers. Okay, so these nations are fighting and competing for position and status within this new system the bankers, all right, are want to roll out, which is a technocracy, man. Okay, so let's play this a little more.
AI is a generational opportunity. Whether you're a person right now with a career or you got a business, you have to know how to use it.
That is true, because you look at our homeless population here in America, and
let me fast forward to this point. Let's see.
It's only for Capital Cosm viewers, so you're only going to get it by clicking the link down below in the description box or the pinned comment. You're not going to find this anywhere else. Click the link, lock it in, and start getting the same game-changing research I've been using since 2020. Yeah, because with Iran doing something like that, it kind of sends a signal that they're hitting their adversary where it hurts. That is through the AI data centers, because they're betting everything on this story. The entire market is propped up on the AI story, and so to me, it seems less likely to be a controlled opposition type of scenario where Iran's kind of in on it, because if they were in on it, they wouldn't be striking these data.
Well, you have different factions. So, what's interesting is if you go around the world, everybody's bought into the control grid, but they want to run the control grid in their country. They don't want it run through the West. Right. So I always say that G7 has become, I call it C4/5, was Terry Mison's structure, where we've gone from decisions about the world being made by the G7 to decisions about the world being made by US, China, Russia, and India. And then if you throw in Japan, that's how you get to 5. So, what I will say is I think that we are looking at a fundamental reordering of how the world is run. We had what was considered to be a geopolitical order, and that order has been thrown out the window, and now there's a very fractious fight over what the new order is going to be, and you do legitimately have different factions now. What they all seem to,
because their post World War II order is the current order that's been running, the earth. All right, with America, that's when America became the horde that rided the beast, was post World War II. Okay, the Bretton Woods Agreement, which made the American dollar the world reserve currency. Okay, and America was able, to manipulate the dollar system, especially after it was pegged to oil. Okay, and it was they dropped the dollar. I mean, they dropped the gold standard and pegged the dollar to oil. They gave them more reach. Okay, with the dollar, they gave them more power. Okay, with their dollar, man, and that's been a financial system that has dominated the earth. Okay, for these last several decades, man. Okay, and that's the system that's being broken up and dismantled. Okay, and they're rolling out a new system. Okay, so what you're seeing now is you have these certain nations that are making alignments, okay, to build these power alliances going into this new system. Okay, and you got nations genuinely fighting against each other for resources and control and for leverage as they're rolling this thing out. We have to remember, Esau always fights over who's going to run, all right, the global system. They always fight over it, okay? And the bankers are always on the back end, all right? And they have the system set up, and these nations fight for who's going to control the system. Okay, they did that World War One, World War Two. These Edomite governments fighting for who's going to control the system. Okay, and according to prophecy, that's how you know who's going to control the new system. And according to prophecy, none of them is going to control it, man. Yahweh Shai is going to bring in a righteous world order. So none of them are going to control this new system. Okay, this war is to end. All right, the rulership of all the heathens, man, beginning with Esau. Okay, well, do you have certain factions that are genuinely fighting for control of this thing, but they all agree with this technocracy. They all in agreement with it. Okay, but you see the infighting starting to intensify. Certain moves being made to fight for control of it. Okay, so let's play this.
agree on converging at the top is, we're going to use digital control, digital technology to have of how the world is run. We had what was considered to be a geopolitical order, and that order has been thrown out the window, and now there's a very fractious fight over what the new order is going to be, and you do legitimately have different factions. Now, what they all seem to agree on converging at the top is, we're going to use digital control, digital technology to have a control grid.
In Russia and China and Iran as well.
Right. Iran, I don't know much about. I'm assuming it's the same, but certainly China, Russia have been fully on board. India for a control grid.
All of them on board. All right. When we looked at Iran, Iran has the digital ID. Okay, so they're all on board with this this new control system. Okay, now, all right, they're just fighting their way into the door. Okay, so let's go here real quick because he spoke about different factions. Well, the scriptures speak about different factions. When you go here, let's get this in the book of. Let's go here to the book of Mark. All right. This is Mark 3. All right, this is the book of Mark, chapter 3, and verse. All right, yeah, verse 24 says, "And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand." And I want to get this word divided. Okay, so these devils, you know, they're divided. You know, even amongst their elites, there's certain divisions. Okay, they agree with this control system. All right, they agree with the technocracy, the concept of, ruling a new government that's going to rule, okay, through technology, okay, through technocrats, okay. When you go into this word divided, okay, and there's events happening. Remember, prophecy is the controlling the narrative, man. Okay, the elites don't have absolute control of how these things play out. Prophecy has absolute control of the narrative, man. And we're seeing all the alliances based on prophecy come together. Okay, the kings of the east. All right, the power being swung to the east and leaving the west, man. That's prophecy, man. Iran coming forth with great power. Okay, the dragons of Arabia, remembering their nature, man, beginning to get hostile with the West, man. So all these things are being dictated by prophecy, man. Okay, so everything that these devils are doing is just playing into prophecy. Okay, so you get this word divided.
Strong's G 3307, merizo. Merizo.
Yeah. It said to divide, to separate into parts, to cut into pieces, to divide into parties, i.e., to be split into factions. Okay, you got to remember that Esau don't have integrity. So it's not black and white with Esau. He deals with treachery, man. Okay, Esau, he always has, all these backdoor deals. Everybody, like I say, these nations, they work with each other, but they don't trust each other. Okay, there's not no, lock tight, system that they got. No, they got all type of deals against each other, deals with each other, double cross, triple cross. They work with each other, but they don't trust each other. Okay, so now we're starting to see the split of these factions as they begin to escalate in this war. You're starting to see these factions war against each other, man. Okay, and it's going to be the end of all of them. You see, so this devil, what he's trying to do is not going to stand. Okay, like I said, they don't have no integrity, man. Esau never had integrity, man. Okay, it says, and if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand but have an end. And is this not the end of Esau? Okay, is this not his end? Okay, if a brother want to post that, Second Ezra 6:9. Okay, is this not this man's end? Okay, so this man is divided. Okay, not only just a Joe six pack that's divided, Democrat and Republic, but even on the level of the elites, man, there are different factions. Okay, there are different factions that's fighting for control of this system that they're rolling out, man. Okay, and they're all going to lose. All right, the rest of the heathen included. Okay, because it's a divided house, man. It's going to continue to escalate. Okay, and get worse and worse. So this is Revelation 11:14 said the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe or the third war coming quickly. Okay, so this third war has started. This is the beginning of it, and it's going to continue to escalate. All right, they're in the midst of a ceasefire. Okay, which we'll Rogers, I'll touch on that tomorrow, dealing with Trump talking about a blockade. Okay, we'll go into that, what that means, and Albert Rogers out tomorrow. We'll touch on that. With Trump and this whole thing of a blockade and what that means, and how things could escalate quickly. Depending on how this devil try to run it. All right, verse 15 says, and the seventh angel sounded, And there were great voices in heaven saying, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our Lord and of his anointed, and he shall reign forever and ever. So the transfer of power is getting ready to transfer to Yahweh Shah. All authority in the earth is getting ready to be transferred to Yahweh Shah. All these governments are getting ready to be conquered by Yahweh Shah, man. Okay? That's what all this builds up to. Okay? So Esau, because we keep up with the devil and what he got going on as far as, okay, what they next move as far as the MOTB. Okay? But ultimately, everything that this devil is doing is in vain. Okay? And the Lord is getting ready to transition, okay, the kingdom, okay, completely from the devil, man. Okay? So let's yeah, the brother got it. We end it there. Okay, so this is the book of Second Ezra, chapter 6, verse 9. Okay, and this from the brother, the hopeful late 3, the brother Yaqub. All right, it says, for Esau is the end of the world. Okay, and this the end of his age. Okay, and the devil, he's finna all right, go to war with himself at the end of the age, man. At the end of his age, man. Okay, Yahweh Shai is gonna come and just get a final blow to this nigga age, man. Okay, and Jacob is the beginning of it, the followers, man. Okay, so there's we're living in the transition, okay, of ages, man, from the age of Esau ruling, okay, with these heathens as his vassal, okay, to the age of Yahweh Shah ruling, okay, with only his nations, okay, as his alliance, man, okay, only the tribes. You see, it's going to be the Yahweh Shah, okay, with the rest of the tribes in power, okay, instead of Esau and these heathens, man. Okay, so the Heavenly Father's been do a major regime change in the earth, man. Okay, this is the last regime change ever. Okay, so yeah, that's the point. Lord will. All right, you brothers. All right, and you sisters edified once again. I'm gonna give all praise and glory unto Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shah Bahashem, Kakadash, and double honors unto the apostles and the elders of GMS who rule well, teach well, being great examples towards younger brothers. And peace and blessing salutations to the hopeful that Shalom.